All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Crypto, Coffee, and LoFi. It's been a little over a month since I made one of these. Needed a bit of a break over Christmas, and I wasn't really confident in my higher time frame bias, so I decided to quarter my risk and try not to take any higher time frame trades, which turned out to be the smart move. So from the start of December up until about 2 weeks ago, I've been on quarter risk, trying not to take swing trades. But now, the higher time frame picture seems to be a little bit clearer from what I'm looking at. In this episode, I will be touching on my higher time frame bias, but I wanted to go over the strategy basics here for any of the new viewers that are watching. So if you are new here, I'm essentially just using the same pattern to find accumulation and distribution, that same pattern to find support resistance, and then that same pattern again as my entry trigger. So what is that pattern? You can think of a head and shoulders or a sweep followed by a structure break. And there's a perfect example here that I'm going to draw out for you. And this is all posted on Twitter too. So this isn't like a cherry picked example, but essentially I am just looking for a sweep. So once we see that sweep, I then look for a break in structure. So here's the sweep, here's the low that was responsible for taking that high. As you can see right here on this candle close, we close below. This isn't a trigger on its own, but once we then return back into this range right here, if we then form the same patterns again, that is a sign that price is starting to distribute. So here, swept that level, breaking below the lows responsible for taking that high, and then again sweeping out these highs here on the lower time frames, breaking below the lows responsible for taking that high. And then there is a little bit of nuance involved here. So although the trigger was there for me to enter the trade, we did see a massive move up right on the daily close, which generally is a sign that the move isn't going to be sustained. So we saw a massive move up into the previous level of distribution. So that was a sign that I should enter short. And on top of that, we did have these equal lows. So essentially the whole strategy is looking for this pattern and then making sure that there's an objective for price to be heading towards. So we see the price is distributing. Why is it distributing? Where is the obvious spot that it's going to be attracted to? So equal lows or a previous area of accumulation. Okay, in this case, it was the equal lows. So I entered my short up here around 38.2, closing a few minutes ago for about 8R. So for all the new people watching, this is essentially the entire strategy. There's a little bit more to it. Obviously, this is a simplified version. So if you want to know anything else, click the link in the description below and you can pick up a copy of the strategy there. So now that that is out of the way, I want to go over my higher time frame bias. So for anyone who hasn't watched any of my tutorials, you'll know that I explained in those tutorials that I do use diagonal trend lines, but only when they are in confluence with the strategy. So with the sweep and break in structure. So if we reach into a diagonal trend line and then accumulate, that tells me that the trend line is going to hold and that we're accumulating there. So just drawing up this channel here. We are reaching into higher time frame support, so I see no reason why we shouldn't see a decent sized retrace here. We haven't seen anything sizable since the start of the down move, so I think longs at the start of this week are favored. I'm just going to go over why. So reaching into higher time frame demand on the weekly here, then sweeping out a previous week's low. Once we swept that low, we then broke above the highs responsible for taking it right here. So that's the first sign that price is starting to accumulate. Now, one of two situations I'm looking at for a long. Either we completely invalidate this morning's move. So if we get a close above this high, something like this, I'll then look for long opportunities inside of this range here, or we see a little bit more downside, and I think this is going to be the scenario that plays out. Or we get a retrace followed by more distribution leading into these equal lows. Well, there hopefully then we see some accumulation somewhere in this area. So if we come up and distribute and we don't invalidate this higher, then I think we head lower, then hopefully we see some accumulation right here. If we head on to the H4, if we do get that accumulation, then I'll be entering swing longs, looking for inside range objectives. So targets that lie inside of a range rather than outside. So here's previous support turn resistance, but it's also a previous level of distribution. So sweeping out these highs, breaking below, it'll be this one, breaking below the lows responsible for taking those highs. So if we do get the swing long, I'll probably look to take the majority of the position off just above 41k, but then obviously leaving some on in case we are catching a bottom. But until we do start to break some structure like this level and this level, it's probably best to assume that we are going to head lower. But if we get that accumulation here and then we break structure, then we can be looking at all-time highs. But try not to predict too far into the future, just looking to trade the levels as they form. Really trying not to overcomplicate anything here for you guys. ETH is looking a little bit better than Bitcoin in my opinion, so similar story looking at this diagonal trend line here. See, we have the test here, just copying and pasting that using the same angle, placing it on this low right here, testing it and then forming some accumulation, so that's a good sign. Okay, sweeping out these lows, breaking above the high right here, coming back, retesting, sweeping out these lows, breaking above the high. So technically the closes above this level right here are my entry signal, but I have just entered a position. So we took out all of these previous days lows right here and testing a level of demand. So I think buying this level with a stop below around 2400 is a decent play. We could head up from here like this or see one more sweep at London Open. I'm thinking another sweep around London Open would actually be more bullish than heading up from here, but regardless if we see that sweep or not, similar to Bitcoin, we are, I drew that wrong, going to need to invalidate the previous levels of distribution. So as you can see, we swept out these highs, breaking below a low. So if this accumulation in this area of demand is going to hold, then I want to see a break above this, followed by some more accumulation. If we do get that, similar to Bitcoin, looking to take some profit at previous levels of distribution at the inside range objectives. I'm really trying not to overcomplicate anything here, but you know, there's only so much I can do in a video. The PDFs and the videos that you can find in the description below explain everything perfectly. So feel free to go check that out. So Bitcoin, ETH, FTT is also accumulating, which is a solid sign. Obviously, if people are accumulating the majors and they're accumulating the exchange coins, there's a reason that they're doing that. All right. And it only makes sense from a risk perspective that you see the larger caps and you see the exchange tokens accumulating before everything else, because then the risk then slowly trickles down to these smaller, riskier caps. Okay, so moving below this key low right here and then accumulating, sweeping out a low, breaking above these highs. So that's a really good sign. I'm already in my swing position from around $35. If we head back onto the daily, you can see we also have some more accumulation sitting here. So FTT is looking really good in my opinion. Hold on. You know, but again, just like Bitcoin and ETH, we're yet to kind of break any higher time frame structure. So it's a little bit hard to say that we're entering back into a bull trend, but we are sitting at higher time frame support at the same time. So it's a little bit hard for me to sit here and say I should enter higher time frame shorts as well. So I think the smart play is to just play level to level, wait for the levels to form and play them, rather than trying to predict a higher time frame trend. If we do get a higher time frame break in structure, then you can start looking for higher time frame longs. But for now, the picture isn't too clear. So I know a few people are looking for longs where we're at right now, but I'm really not seeing it. So if you look at this whole move up here, we're yet to retest the previous level of accumulation. So sweeping out this high, this low, breaking above the high, and since this whole leg up, we haven't really come back to test it. So looking at about $58, I'm not saying that I'm going to be leaving blind limits here. I'm just saying that if we are, or we're obviously in a downtrend, just looking for obvious objectives for the downtrend. Okay, but if we do accumulate here, then that is a good sign that the downtrend's going to finish, but yeah, nothing yet. Link is looking a little bit better. So sweeping out these equal lows, breaking above the high. Right here. Coming down, forming a key swing low. Moving below that key swing low into demand, and then accumulating. So that's good. See, sweeping out this low, breaking above the highs. Now what we need is a follow through. So if we get an invalidation of this high, followed by some reaccumulation, then we can start to enter swing longs using Bitcoin, ETH, and FTT as a bit of confluence. Right, 11 minutes. I think that's going to conclude today's episode. I am leaning towards a higher time frame bullish bias from where we are. But yeah, I'm not trying to get married to any particular bias, just trading the levels as they come. The easy in, easy out indicator has actually been released too. So if you want more information on that, you could click the link in the description below and check out the website. There's a bunch of results on there. So if any of this strategy here is a little bit complicated for you, or you're struggling to pick up exactly what I'm explaining, the easy in, easy out indicator essentially replicates my manual strategy one for one in an automated version, I guess. So it marks out all of these lines for you, gives you an entry, a stop, your take profit, everything. So feel free to go and check that out. All right, so back Wednesday. Enjoy the rest of your day, guys. Bye.